I'm bad with money, I don't come from a rich or wealthy family. Hi everyone, Roxanne here from financerocks.com. Today I'm going to share how identity affects our finances and 3 ways that you can change your financial identity. I came up with the idea for this video because I realized that having an identity as a frugal person has helped me save a lot of money over the years. Conversely, I've seen people that identify as a spender or being bad with money, and I think that having that identity actually has made it harder for them to save money. And it makes sense, right? If you identify as a spender, but you have a goal to save money, that's going to cause conflict in your mind when you're shopping and considering whether or not you're going to buy something. I'm interested to see which of these identities you resonate with, and then what your thoughts are on how to change that identity as well. If you have ever caught yourself saying things like, I'm bad with money, I don't come from a rich or wealthy family, or if you've caught yourself saying, I am a spender, not a saver, or I'm more of a free spirit with my money, those are all identities that can affect how we spend money, how we decide whether or not to save money. I believe that identifying as frugal has helped me save money because then saying no to purchases is in alignment with how I view myself. After doing some research, I've discovered that this is what psychologists call cognitive consonance. I am sure that I am not saying that correctly, but here, let me give you the definition. It is the state of harmony and internal consistency arising from compatibility among a person's attitudes, behavior, beliefs, and/or knowledge. And I interpret that to mean that when I say that I'm a saver and then save money, that I get to prove to my brain that I was right. This is evidence that I am acting in alignment with that identity. Now, maybe you have heard of the opposite of this, which is cognitive dissonance. The state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as relating to behavioral decisions and attitude change. An example of this is when someone smokes a behavior, but they know that smoking causes cancer, which is the cognition or the thought. They're in a state of cognitive dissonance. There's disagreement between what they know is good for them and the action that they're taking. This is part of the reason that it is so hard to change bad habits. Because if we have a bad habit that is in alignment with a negative identity, then trying to replace that bad habit with a good habit or something that we would like to do instead, it feels unnatural, it feels wrong. And what's happening there is that our brains are trying to convince us that this action is outside of our normal, it's outside of our identity. So why is this? Our brains are essentially trying to keep us in alignment with our identity to prevent identity crises. So I want to give an example from James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. Now, if you haven't read this book, go out, buy it, read it. I freaking love this book. It was my favorite read of 2019, and I highly recommend it. In Atomic Habits, he talks about how a lot of people think that you change your habits and then your identity changes to meet those habits. So an example, you start running and then after a year or two, then you start calling yourself a runner because it's something that you've done for a while. There's evidence of you becoming a runner. But in Atomic Habits, he actually talks about how it's actually a lot easier to adopt new habits if you change your identity first and then take the actions that support that identity. And he gives a great example of smokers. He said that they did a survey where some smokers were instructed to say, no, I don't want a cigarette because I'm not a smoker, compared to smokers that would say, I don't want a cigarette, I'm trying to quit smoking. In the first example, they've transitioned to where in their mind they're no longer identifying as a smoker. And then in the second group, they still identify as a smoker and just say, no thanks, I'm trying to quit. This first group were a lot more successful in quitting smoking and sustaining the habit of quitting smoking. It seems odd, doesn't it, that you could change how you think about yourself, change what you say, and have that affect your habits. But ultimately, that is what the research shows. And come to think of it, this has happened to me with running and being an athlete. So growing up, I had this belief that I was not athletic. And since I've finally been able to convince myself that I am a little bit athletic, still working on it, it does make it a little easier to work out. It does make it a little easier to make it to the gym and to actually be athletic and maintain a habit of working out. And I've experienced it with finances as well. For example, every time someone tells me, like my brothers or husband, Roxanne, why don't you upgrade your car? You could use a new car. Your car is so old and crummy. Why don't you upgrade it? And I always think to myself, I don't need a new car. I'm not fancy. My car is fine. I'm a frugal person. I like having a cheap car. So that has helped prevent me from going out and buying a 2020 Honda to replace it. If you follow Dave Ramsey, you'll know that he believes that identity is important for saving money as well. While I've never heard him talk about it specifically, about identity and how that affects your finances, he always says, be weird. Normal is broke, be weird. And that identity shift of being weird and being the one that saves money, being the one that says no to expensive family vacations when you're trying to pay off debt, that little identity tweak is exactly what I'm talking about for how identifying as frugal or considering your financial identity is going to help you to save money. Ultimately, the be weird belief boils down to helping you to say no to societal pressures. So let's discuss how to change your financial identity. The first tip that I have for you is to identify one or two positive identities to replace the negative ones that you resonate with currently. I've already mentioned a few of them, but just to kind of outline them here, identities would be I am frugal, I am weird, I'm thrifty, I'm not fancy, I'm responsible with money, I'm the kind of person who manages their money, reviews their finances weekly. Really, you can pick any kind of positive identity that will help you to achieve your financial goals. So these, are just examples. You could pick the ones that you feel the most emotional connection to. Obviously, some of them are a little corny, but once you have this new identity picked out that you want to start relating to and want to start adopting, try to catch yourself when you are identifying with the negative identity that you're trying to eliminate. When you catch yourself doing that, try to just replace it with this new identity. James Clear talks about how it can feel like a lie at first when you are just starting to try to adopt a new identity. There's going to be some disagreement in your mind about, oh, I'm a spender, I'm a saver, which is normal. So, expect for it sometimes to feel like you're lying to yourself or that it's not a true statement. And that leads me into my second tip, which is to search your past for examples that support the new identity. I thought of this tip because of this day that I was driving home from the gym, and it was before coronavirus. I was driving home from the gym. It was 7:30 in the morning. I remember thinking to myself, I wish I could do this all the time. You remember that time a month ago when I slept in? I'm the worst about waking up early and going to the gym. It's always been a struggle for me. Yeah. As I was driving home from the gym at 7:30 in the morning, I was remembering the one time a month ago where I didn't get up and go to the gym. And that just made me think, our brains are so much better at remembering the negative things that we've done, the downsides of things, instead of looking at the positive things we've done or the times that we have taken action. So make a conscious effort to think up some examples from the past where you have saved money, where you have been able to save up a good chunk of change, where you have saved up enough money to go on a trip, or times that you have made good progress on your debt. Substitute those when you're thinking of the negative times. So maybe I should mention this here as well. It can be an ongoing struggle. Like I said, identifying as an athlete does help me to work out more. But identity is something that you have to maintain and keep up. There have been times where I've falling out of working out, where I haven't worked out as frequently. And then I have to kind of bring myself in and, realign myself with that identity. For example, I stopped running when I first went to college because I was busy working and going to school. And I remember specifically thinking to myself, I really need to start running again if I'm going to continue calling myself a runner. It's not as easy as just becoming that person that you want to be and then it just being easy all the time. It still is an ongoing battle. It's just a way to help keep habits going that you want to foster. In order to adopt a frugal identity, you might have to constantly be convincing yourself that you are frugal until, eventually you have it and then it does become easier. But just wanted to mention that it's not as easy as just becoming that and then always doing it. Tip number 3, develop some tiny, healthy money habits. Come up with a few tiny habits, things that you can start doing to start building evidence to yourself that you are now this new person with this, new identity. It's important to not try to develop all of the habits at one time. Habit changing is very difficult and it can take a while to establish a single habit. So you want to start trying to find little things that you can do that will help you start building that new identity. So here are a few things that you can do. Things like setting $5 aside every week in a savings account, doing a no-spend weekend or no-spend challenge, find a fun, free activity to do with a family member or friend. Try going thrift store shopping if you've never been before, or maybe go garage sailing or some kind of secondhand shopping, Craigslist, for example, if you usually buy things new. And I did want to caution you, it does take a while for tastes to change. A lot of the times, it can be a little unpleasant at first until you get used to it. Examples of this would be things like trying off-brand foods that you don't normally eat. You might literally not like the taste of them at first, but then sometimes, if you stick it out, you actually develop a taste for it and then you like that thing. And certainly if you're trying to develop a new frugal habit and if you try it and try it and try it and just legitimately don't like it, then there's no problem with that. Find a different frugal habit to adopt. So just try to stick it out past that initial phase of awkwardness. That's all I have for you. So to recap, my 3 tips for changing your financial identity would be picking a new positive identity for your finances that you can relate to. Search for past examples that will support that identity, and then build some new tiny financial habits that will help support that identity. I'd love to hear in the comments below what was the most helpful takeaway from this video. What was the thing that you found most helpful? And then which of these identities, whether positive or negative, do you relate to or that resonate with you? And then feel free to like this video, subscribe to the channel. I do produce new videos every Friday, all about how to save more money, how to pay off debt, and how to reduce financial stress. Thank you so much, and until next time, I hope your finances rock. After a bit of research, I discovered that this is what psychologists call After some research, I realized that this is what psychologists calls in alignment with our identity to prevent identity crises. Identity crises. Hey Joe, what's the plural of crisis? How do you say it? Crises? Okay, thanks. Not bad. Not too bad.